Hey, good evening. Quick question. How many of us like to visit the zoo? Or go? Okay, good. So the LA Zoo estimates seeing 1.5 million visitors every year, and why not, right? We get to walk through the park, we get to see cool animals, everyone has fun. Maybe not the animals, though. My claim is that zoological parks are detrimental to the health of animal residents. I'm including specialized parks such as aquatic parks and breeding centers when I say zoological parks. I base my claim on 3 points. Animal enclosures fail to provide adequate amenities, animals held in captivity display modified behavior, and captive animals are treated as commodities and that their intrinsic value is based on the genes that they carry. My first point again is animal enclosures fail to provide adequate amenities. Lecturer Sachi Samir at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem writes that zoo animals have the means to survive in the wild as long as humans do not destroy their ecosystems or hurt them. There is no replacement for nature. The study by zoologists at Oxford University gathered data on the well-being of large carnivores and the amount of time they spent pacing along in their enclosures. And based on this, they calculated how much space their enclosures are smaller than the area they roam within in the wild. So they concluded that lions and tigers have 17 to 18,000 have enclosures 17 to 18,000 times smaller than they would if they were out in the wild. Black bears have 25,000 have area 25,000 times smaller than they would in area that they would roam naturally. And amazingly, the polar bear is by far the worst. It comes in at 1 million times smaller than it would in roaming in the wild. And speaking of pacing, which is unnatural behavior for these animals, I move over to my second point, which is animals held in captivity display modified behavior. The Captive Animal Protection Society states that lions in zoos spend 48% of their waking time hours pacing. So they're basically pacing for half the time that they're awake. The newspaper, the Independent, reported earlier this year that Aihin, the panda, falsely exhibited pregnant behavior to receive better food and care. So this panda learned that while pregnant, they receive better food, 24-hour, round-the-clock care. And so it decided it was going to display more of this behavior in order to receive these amenities. And then Jeffrey Kahn, writing for Bioscience, writes that elephants are not able to form the extended family unit since these animals are very social, and it's a matriarchy, so you have the mothers, aunts, babies, juveniles, and in zoos you usually get 3 or 4 of these animals in a group. My third point, captive animals are treated as commodities and that their intrinsic value is based on the genes they carry. CNN reported earlier this year that 2-year-old Marius the giraffe was euthanized because he was considered surplus offspring. And I use the term loosely because euthanasia, as defined by Merriam-Webster, is the act or practice of killing someone who is very sick or injured to prevent any more suffering. Marius the giraffe was healthy, and it wasn't a mercy killing. He was shot in the head, dissected in front of an audience, and then fed to lions, simply because he was surplus. The New York Times then later reported that 4 lions were euthanized in the name of genetic purity and conservation. the zoo was receiving a young male lion who would, in the wild, kill the offspring of any competing males. So they decided to kill those cubs, and they killed the parents as well in order to prevent inbreeding between the parents and the children. Again, Jeffrey Cohn, writing for Bioscience, writes that elephant calves born in captivity are later separated from their mothers and sent to different zoos. To conclude, I assert that zoological parks are detrimental to the health of animal residents, and this is because the enclosures fail to provide the adequate amenities. Animals held in captivity have modified behavior, and captive animals are treated as commodities based, and that their intrinsic value is based on their genes. So it is with this information that I hope that you rethink the way we think of zoos. Thank you.
All right, there's a good preview. The proposition is relatively clear. The signposts sound a little bit like a checkoff list when you're going through it. I think you could use better transitions. You had good examples that you're citing. I thought there were frequent citations of authority in the position that you have. I like the sources that you presented, and it seemed like you had good illustrations of the points that you were talking about. I think there's probably a larger context here that needs a little bit more background on it, but it's pretty good. Like I said, the examples are also very dramatic. I thought you did a good job presenting, and I really thought there was a nice, effective summary. All right, Colton.